This molecule is important for much more than just anti-aging or acne, but it's vital if you want to do any sort of aging whatsoever. Retinoic acid, it works.
Yeah. Oh, it works. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Beauty by the Beaker. I'm Sadie.
I'm Natalie.
And we're cosmetic chemists, and we're here to give science a hot new makeover.
We sure are.
Today, we are talking about one of my greatest passions. Honestly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big fan of this topic. Take it away.
Yeah. Why don't we just jump right into it? It's a big topic, so we have a lot to cover.
Yes, we do.
Today, we are going to be talking about the MVP of skincare ingredients.
Mm-hmm. PDR.
Retinoids. So it's almost impossible to hear about skincare and not hear about retinol.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk all about what it is. We're going to talk about why I just said two different words, retinoids and retinol. And we're going to talk about if/how you should be using this in your skincare routine.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So retinoids is an umbrella term for a group of a bunch of different types of ingredients that your skin can then convert into a usable form of vitamin A. So vitamin A and retinoids are technically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're both umbrella terms for molecules that your body can convert into usable forms of vitamin A or a usable retinoid, which we call retinoic acid.
So the molecule itself has to do something in your body in order to be used. Like your body has to do something to it in order for it to use it.
Yes. Typically, when we're talking about vitamin A, if someone uses the term vitamin A, they're usually talking about dietary vitamin A. And if they're talking about retinoids, typically they're talking about topical vitamin A.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always the case because, like I said, they're basically the same thing. So you could use them fairly interchangeably.
Mm-hmm.
But for both categories, these are just molecules that your body can convert into retinoic acid. This molecule, retinoic acid, is important for much more than just anti-aging or acne, but it's vital if you want to do any sort of aging whatsoever.
Oh,
yeah.
If you want to age or not age,
Yeah.
you need it either way.
Yes. Exactly.
Sorry,
if you
she's
want
necessary.
If you want to get older and not look like it, or just get older at all,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to need vitamin A. Your body needs vitamin A to make retinoic acid. And why are these so hard to say? Especially
because there are 8,000 different retin terms.
True.
I don't blame you.
Retinoic acid is then one of those molecules that functions like a key and lock situation that we've talked about. That mechanism. And when cells are made in your body, they follow a pretty strict roadmap. It's kind of like a string of dominoes. When one thing falls, it starts a chain reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Retinoic acid is basically like the push that starts that domino.
Okay.
So it can open the gate and start a reaction that is like cell growth and cell turnover and all of those types of things.
Mm-hmm. She's knocking on the door.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of the key that turns the cell growth pathway on.
Okay.
And it's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
So applying topical retinoids can help with a variety of skin issues like acne, wrinkles, and uneven pigmentation. But there are a bunch of different types of retinoids and they don't all work exactly the same way. So the only molecule that really works is the retinoic acid. It has to get to that point for it to work.
Right.
And you can get this as a prescription from a doctor in the form of like tretinoin.
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty much just straight. It functions as it is.
Right.
It is retinoic acid.
And your body doesn't have to do anything to convert it to
Yes.
a different form.
Yes. But if you can't get store-bought, homemade is just fine.
Hey, everyone. Now it's telling you to make your own retinoic acid.
Well, yes, but just within your cells. Let your cells do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is some argument that the lesser, less potent versions of retinoids might actually be better for your skin than the straight retinoic acid. So we'll get into that a little bit. I'm not recommending that you concoct it consciously, but it might be okay to let your cells do it from a starting material.
It's like DIY, but you're pretty detached from the whole process.
Yeah. Yeah, DIY, if it was like breathing, is also DIY.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm going to start calling myself a DIYer just for all the basic time. Like I'm
Oxygen production.
DIY hair growth. DIY nail growth.
These are my DIY brows.
I love it. Yeah.
All right.
So funny.
Anyway, how did we come to hear so much about retinol then? And why did I write this sentence? This sentence doesn't go anywhere.
So how come we hear so much about retinol and now we hear more about things like retinol esters and things?
Why?
And I've been
asking this for a long time. How come we hear so much about retinol and now we hear more about things like retinol esters and things?
It's funny because like the sentence does work. It's actually like a correct sentence, but the way that it's written,
it's not delivering information in the way that I'd want it to.
It's no retinoic acid.
No, okay. No. We have to break this one down a little bit. Let's convert this sentence.
DIY it.
Yeah. Let's make something that we can use here.
Yeah.
I feel like retinol is the one people talk about that one. It's the one that gets the most hype.
I feel like it's thought of as the catch-all term.
Yeah.
Like everyone thinks that is what tretinoin is.
Is a retinol.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is not,
it's not correct.
It's not correct.
Yeah.
But also I don't blame anyone for thinking that because this topic is very confusing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very similar. I've seen it compared to being kind of like a square and rectangle situation.
Yeah.
So all of these are retinoids, which is like all of them are rectangles. Mm-hmm. But then like each one is its own shape within that. So like the retinoic acid is like a square and the other ones aren't squares, but they're still in the rectangle category.
Yeah. Are any of them trapezoids?
Yeah. That's up for you guys to decide though.
Leave it in the comments which one is which.
Retinol has been the one that I think is maybe just... Honestly, it's probably the one that's easiest to say.
Oh, yeah. Retinol, it covers all of them.
Exactly. But there are other reasons why that one is talked about more. So let's just start by clearing up all of these confusing terms that I've thrown your way, as well as other vitamin A terms that I haven't thrown your way yet, but I'm going to. As a reminder, let's go back to skin layers, because skin layers are always so important.
They are.
When we're talking about skin.
Shout out to all my layers.
The skin is made up of multiple layers. We've talked about it. There's 3 broad categories: subcutaneous, dermis, and epidermis, from down low to up high. Mm-hmm. So your subcutaneous is down there.
The deepest.
The deepest, yes. Like, how do I think of that? What's inside?
For our audio listeners,
it's down there.
That's tapping her arm.
Yeah. Then the dermis is kind of in the middle, and the epidermis is the layer that is on the outside of your skin that you can see. And it's mostly made up of keratinocytes, which is the name of the type of cell, makes up the majority of your epidermis. And the way that your skin cells work is they're produced in the lower layers, and then as they graduate, they move from the bottom up and become keratinocytes, and then they die. So they become keratinocytes. That's like when they're in their very end stages, and then they die, and they're supposed to fall off once they die. You're supposed to shed them. That doesn't always happen, and that's where we get some skin issues.
Uh-oh.
Your skin needs vitamin A. Like I said, it's a very vital component to skin development and skin maturation. And the natural vitamin A that's already present in your skin through like your diet or things like that is passed through your skin cell wall, and it binds with a protein in the nucleus, or the middle of your cell where all the DNA is kept. And it makes DNA messages that then tell that cell that it's time to move on to the next stage of life. Kind of like I said earlier with the domino thing, it's opening up that box of messages, box of instructions to tell it like, okay, time to grow up.
Okay, you're 18 now. It's time for you to move on.
Yeah. So
and vitamin A's job in your body.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's necessary. You do need your cells to grow up, and like that's part of it.
Yeah. They can't just be here forever. Listen.
Yeah, you want to be regenerating them all the time.
Yeah.
And vitamin A is mandatory. It's vital for making sure that those processes are happening as they're supposed to. So vitamin A is supposed to come into your cells and tell them time for your next stage of life.
Yeah.
Move on it. This speeds up the rate at which your skin cells are maturing and falling off. And at first, that might not sound like a good thing because it's speeding up the age of your skin cells, making them age faster. But as your skin cells become damaged and as you get older, their normal processes can get disrupted. And this can result in a bunch of skin issues because they're no longer falling off like they're supposed to. If your skin cells aren't shedding normally, they can start to basically clutter up your skin. And as a result, you can get uneven skin, kind of clumps of keratinocytes, acne, fine lines, wrinkles, all of those things.
It seems kind of similar to me as like a hair trim.
Yeah.
You can grow your hair out, but if you're not trimming it consistently, it's not going to get longer because you just have a bunch of like split ends and damage and like issues. So like, even though, trimming your hair does take a little bit of length off of it, it's necessary because the issues are worse if you don't do that. Yeah. A lot of the damage that you do get in your skin is from the sun. That's an important thing to mention because we'll get back to this, but if you are ever using a retinol, you should definitely be using sunscreen. Yeah, you should use it anyway, but it's like non-negotiable if you're using retinol. But almost all like our skin issues can be linked to photoaging. Usually it's that sun's high energy that is causing your cells to misbehave in the first place. So things like dark spots and stuff is all from the sun. Also, the wrinkles and all that. Yeah. So using additional vitamin A and increasing your cell production is almost kind of like a crowd out method. You're giving all of the cells a fast pass, then they're turning over faster, and it means that they're kind of pushing out the cells that are on top that are a little more resistant to go because they're not going to naturally take things up on their own. Right. They're not high achievers. No. They're not going to get out by themselves. No. So this keeps your skin looking baby fresh all the time. The vitamin A also increases your skin's collagen production. And collagen, I'm sure we've talked about it, but it's basically just what gives your skin its structure. So if you increase cell collagen, then it makes your skin a lot firmer. Yeah. So retinoids have been used for things like anti-aging and acne, but there's also a lot of interesting data on things like skin cancer, stretch marks, and I almost said cellulose. What is that stuff called? Cellulite. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. Like cellulite and things like that, because those are all like from damages in skin cells. And so even like cancer cells or something. Yeah. You can kind of crowd out a cancer cell. Interesting. Theoretically. Yeah. Things are just maybe not there yet. Yeah, but it's trending in that direction. Yeah. Collagen production is also really important too, because after the age of 25, you stop producing as much collagen. Like your collagen bank depletes. And so having something in your routine that helps promote collagen production is really important. Yeah. And if you're in the sun, that will stop collagen production. Does the sun not like me? The sun doesn't like anybody. We have such a love-hate relationship. Yeah. It's like, I need you, but you hurt me. Yeah. In small doses. Everything in moderation. Exactly. Since vitamin A is so important for your skin, there are already a lot of systems in place so that your skin can convert things that resemble vitamin A into its usable form, retinoic acid. That's why when we talk about these ingredients, we refer to them as retinoids. Retinoids are anything that your skin is able to convert into retinoic acid. So if you put it on your skin and your skin turns it into retinoic acid, it's a retinoid. Congratulations. You found one. Yay. And that's, again, key to unlocking those DNA messages that tell cells to grow. So the difference is just how your skin converts it? Yes. Yeah. Now you may be asking... Sorry if that was premature. No, that's okay. It's a good segue. I don't have a segue here at all. It just says, why are there different types? And maybe you're asking that because that is a little bit confusing. There are a bunch of different types of retinoids. And why are some retinoids more potent than others? This has to do a lot with the way that our skin metabolizes them or the way that we are able to use them up and turn them into retinoic acid. There's 4 main categories. It's broken up into 4 main categories because they are metabolized in this order. Okay. So retinyl esters, retinol, retinal, and retinoic acid. So this is kind of like the evolutionary line of retinoids. So if you put retinyl palmitate, which is a retinol ester, retinol esters. Let's break that down really quickly because
I'm going to say retinol palmitate, I think, a lot because that's a very common form of a retinol ester.
Yeah.
But these are just when you react retinol with an ester and you get a retinol ester. So in this one, you're reacting retinol with palmitic acid and you get retinol palmitate. A retinol ester is retinol reacted with an ester of some sort, which is basically just a long fatty molecule. Mm-hmm. The result is something that your body would then have to break in half into retinol and the ester. Mm-hmm. So if you were to apply retinol palmitate to your skin, you would then convert it from that into retinol. Then the retinol is converted to retinol, and then retinol is converted to retinoic acid. Mm-hmm. Then retinoic acid is the one that actually fits into the lock.
So it's just a few steps to get to the point that you need to be.
Yes.
Because the end goal is always retinoic acid.
Yes, that's the only one that your body will actually use. Mm-hmm. But if you apply one of these other ones, it will just convert it to that and then use it.
That makes sense.
So this is where the potency thing comes into play. You'll often hear people say that retinol palmitate or retinol esters are a less potent vitamin A derivative, but that's just because once you apply it, your skin first has to go through all the work of converting it into retinoic acid.
So those like 4 steps.
Yeah. But if you apply retinol, that's one less step that it has to do, making it slightly more potent because it's a little more bioavailable.
Right.
Meaning you can use it. That's just what bioavailability is. Like it can actually function as is.
Yep.
If you apply retinoic acid to your face, like tretinoin, it's available for a much more immediate use because it's already in a usable form.
So your body doesn't have to do any of the work.
Yeah. And for today's episode, we're going to focus more on topical retinoids and not the oral medications or the vitamin A that we get from food. But it would be wrong not to mention Accutane since we talk about it in every other episode.
Yeah, that would be a sin on our part.
This is also a very highly potent form of vitamin A. This is isotretinoin. So it's nearly identical to tretinoin, except there's a bend in the molecule. Basically, that means that instead of being all single bonds, there's like one double bond that bends it.
Interesting.
Yeah, but your body can still use it as is.
Mm-hmm. It's also probably more potent. That's the most potent form you can get is isotretinoin.
Yes,
correct?
And yes and no. Isotretinoin and tretinoin are essentially the same thing. It's just that isotretinoin is ingested and tretinoin is topical. So there haven't really been comparisons on the two working through the same mechanism, but ingesting things is always more effective than topically applied things. So isotretinoin is going to have better efficacy results because it's ingested.
So it's not necessarily more potent. It's just more effective because the route you're using, you don't have all of, for lack of a better term, the barriers that your skin provides when it comes to topicals.
Yeah. And I don't know, there might be specific reasons why that's the case because obviously there are different hurdles that a molecule has to overcome in order to pass through your skin versus processed by your liver, which is what happens when you eat vitamin A. Actually, I do have on this image up here where I did my conversion, the retinol palmitates at the bottom. I'll put this picture in here. And then you can go to retinol and retinal. If you have beta carotene and you eat it, it converts to retinol and then retinoic acid. But you can eat beta carotene and it can turn into retinol as well.
So if you just eat a ton of carrots, then your acne will clear up?
Maybe. Probably not as effective as other routes, but
probably have to eat so much. Also, one thing I do want to clarify, I guess, why is more steps less potent?
Okay, this is a good question. This is a great question, actually. And there's a very specific reason, and there is a reason, well, how do I want to word this? The potency of these 4 is very hard to really pin down unless it's retinoic acid. Because the other 3, retinol esters, retinol, and retinal, all of those reactions between each other are reversible reactions. So that means that they can happen in either direction. So if you have retinol, you apply retinol to your skin, it could become retinal, but it also could convert to a retinol ester.
The opposite way.
Yes. Same thing with like retinal. It could convert to retinol or an ester. But the reaction from retinol to retinoic acid is not reversible. So once it becomes retinoic acid, it stays as retinoic acid.
Okay.
That's where some of the benefit of these other ones can come in, because you can kind of think of it as like a timed delivery.
Okay.
Your body is converting things as it's using them. If you have available retinoic acid already in your skin, it'll use that, and these will stay in their non-usable forms until they're needed. Whereas retinoic acid, if you have that already on your skin, there's nowhere else for it to go. It's just, it's going to start opening these doors and tell your cells to mature.
Right.
So, okay, where was I kind of gone?
Basically, I just want to make sure it's super clear to the audience why more steps. But that makes sense. So essentially, if you apply straight retinoic acid, your body has to use it. If you apply something that has multiple steps, your body gets to kind of choose when it needs it. And so that leads to fewer side effects, correct?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Generally.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but yeah, because nothing can ever be black and white, there are some major pros and cons to both the prescription strength retinoic acid and the earlier derivatives, the earlier retinoids, and the right one depends a lot on your skin.
That makes sense.
So yeah, the more work that your skin has to go through to make the retinoic acid, the less potent the retinoid is going to be. But sometimes that can be a good thing because your skin can convert the retinoids into the usable form as they're needed, and you're not overwhelming your cells with a bunch of retinoic acid that's just going to start doing things.
Does it ever lose any of its efficacy through that process of conversion?
I don't think so once it's like delivered into your cells, but there are definitely other things that can affect potency of like formulas. Tretinoin, that's only available with a prescription, but you can get the other ones. You can purchase them freely. One thing we could say about it, I think, is just that lines also get blurry here because they're regulated differently in different countries. So some of what is available for purchase without a prescription in other countries isn't here, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But tretinoin is always prescription needed.
Because that's the most potent form you can get.
Yeah, it's just the straight up retinoic acid.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because once it's on your skin can't convert it into anything else. It's just, you're using this, it's an acid that you're putting on your skin.
It's like you have to unlock these doors.
Yeah, yep.
And tretinoin can really commonly cause irritation. Why does it do that?
Well, great question. So again, the way that they work is by increasing your cell production and getting them to like mature and fall off. But this is kind of similar to like over exfoliating. Using retinoids does help to like break the cells up, and it decreases the amount of attraction that your cells have for each other, which means that when you do exfoliate, they come off more easily.
Right.
So if you have a bunch of like trapped skin cells, then a higher potency retinoid could help to kind of clear that out. But if you don't have that issue, then you might be accelerating exfoliating cells that are not necessarily ready to be exfoliated.
That makes sense.
Yeah, which would lead to irritation. The other thing that's a common issue with this is that there's usually like a purge period with retinoids. Retinoic acid, it works.
Yeah. Oh, it works.
It works. That's pretty much just known. Where we get into a little bit of gray area are these retinoids and things because they're not as scientifically sound, but they do work anecdotally. We'll talk about that a little bit in next week's episode.
One thing that can be difficult about purging as well is that the idea of purging is that it's bringing things up to the surface. It's increasing your skin cell turnover. And so as you have things trapped within your skin, like acne or whatever, it brings it to the surface faster. That's the idea behind a purge.
Right.
The hard part is that symptoms of irritation can also mimic symptoms of purging.
Right.
So if your skin doesn't like something, it can also look red, irritated, break out.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult to know if your skin's actually purging or if your skin just hates that product and it's never going to get better. Because the idea behind purging is that it's only for a short period of time. And then once everything's cleared out, your skin clears up.
Yeah.
If your skin hates a product, it doesn't ever get better. So you do want to be selective and start really slow.
Yeah.
And kind of work your way up to
avoid
those symptoms.
That's definitely what I was going to get into somehow. So yes, perfect. Where choosing a retinol or a retinoid, sorry, I even fell victim.
It's so hard to tell the difference.
But yeah, it can be a little bit tricky because it's very common for people to think higher potency equals more effective. Mm-hmm. But if you overwhelm your skin, you can do a lot more harm and cause, like the irritation and things that you're not even going to be able to see if it did anything positive for your skin. You're just going to be really itchy and inflamed and miserable. So yeah, it is recommended that you start with a very low percentage retinol or a retinol ester and apply it in very small doses. Some people recommend using it every other day or every third day. Mm-hmm. And some people even recommend applying it kind of like a mask and then rinsing it off.
Yeah.
Either way, you should probably be using it at night because of the sun. It will make your skin more irritated. Mm-hmm. And the sun is what's causing all of your skin issues.
Yeah.
So if you're not putting on sunscreen as well, then you're not going to be getting the benefit of a retinol.
Yeah. You're basically just like canceling out all of the benefits that you're trying to get if you don't apply sunscreen.
Yeah. Retinoic acid has pretty good clinical data, but that doesn't mean that every single person needs to have a retinoid in their routine. And you really only need to be using one if you have some sort of issue with cell turnover. Mm-hmm. So if you're an 11-year-old with perfect glass skin, you're probably fine to skip this step.
In fact, please skip this step.
Yes.
Please do not start using retinol too early because that can also cause issues.
It can. And my very first reaction is like, teens using retinol, scary, right? But retinol started as an acne treatment.
Yeah.
So we started it on teens. Yeah. And it wasn't until later that we actually discovered that it helps with anti-aging.
Yeah.
So
teenagers with acne, I'm pro adding a gentle retinoid into your routine.
Right.
Especially under like a dermatologist's supervision.
Yes. But that's why, like, if you are a preteen or teen listening to this, if you have good skin, adding a retinol could do damage.
Yes.
But if you do have acne, it could help.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why not every single person needs to have one of these in their routine. I don't necessarily have perfect skin, but I don't currently use a retinoid. I'm not opposed to using one. I've been considering adding one into my routine. I just haven't yet.
Yeah.
But much like every other ingredient, the ingredient itself is way less important than the actual formula that ingredient is contained in.
Yep.
So when buying your accessible retinoids, ones that you can just go get from any skincare company, there are a lot of...
The wind is going crazy.
I know.
Do you think it'll affect the audio, or are we close enough to our mics?
I don't know. I'm hoping we're close enough to the mics. It's really windy, but it's also... This room gets really hot and it ruins the cameras. It makes them shut off.
Sorry, guys.
If you hear the wind
in the background, we apologize. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Ruined your train of thought.
No, that's totally fine. Another reason why you don't necessarily need to add a retinol is because not all retinols are going to be created equal.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a very common misconception that the higher strength retinoids are going to be more effective or even that they're going to be more irritating. And that just isn't true because the formula that they are contained in or even the packaging that they're in can have a big effect on how much is actually making it to your skin.
Yes.
Because retinoids are not very stable and most of them can convert between their forms within a product. So if the label says it has retinol in it, it probably actually has a combination of those three retinoids that can all interchange within each other in sort of that product base. This happens all the time in skincare formulas. Yep. You can put in an amount and you'll claim how much you put in, but then what it actually does in that product can be unknown, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it can also degrade over time. So if the formula is not well done, you're not going to be seeing all of the benefits. And it can be really difficult for you to know whether or not a formula is good or not.
It can be.
But yeah, there's a lot that goes into choosing a retinol or retinoid that you're adding to your routine.
Yeah. One thing that can be helpful just to kind of weed out from the beginning is that retinoids do react pretty strongly with light and air. So the potency and effectiveness of products can change a lot based on their packaging. Mm-hmm. So I think I one time got a retinol cream that was in a pot, and I distinctly remember I used it one time and I could like feel it, and then it never felt the same again. And now looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, it probably just degraded the second I opened it.
Yeah, a pot is crazy.
I know. I spent like $80 on it. It was 1 ounce, half ounce probably.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would piss me off.
I was mad.
Yeah.
I was mad in the moment. I didn't even understand the chemistry. I was like, what happened?
Like, what's going on?
I felt like the firmness happened the first time. And then I was like, the next time it just like didn't feel like anything happened. And I was like, weird.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like for cosmetic product, I would lean towards an airless pump or a squeezy tube.
Yeah. Airless pumps can introduce a lot of air, actually. Like they'll have air bubbles kind of.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know exactly how it works, but apparently they're just not like as good as like a really good tube.
Yeah. I mean, my Tret is in a tube. And it's prescription strength. So.
I think just because like when, like if you have a pump and there's like,
I guess if you're like priming it a lot.
Yeah.
Either way, something that doesn't sit open on your countertop like a jar.
Yeah.
Or that is like a clear package.
Yes. You definitely want to look for products that are in opaque packaging. If it's in a clear package, then it's probably already degraded.
Yeah. Seriously.
You're probably not really going to get any of that actively delivered into your skin.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other ingredients in the formula base can play a big role on the effectiveness of retinoids for better or for worse. And if you start looking into using retinoids, you're going to see a lot of discourse about ingredients that should or should not be used in combination with retinoids. And a lot of this is also anecdotal. A lot of people warn against using things like hyaluronic acid or humectants while using retinol because it increases the permeability of your skin and therefore makes them more effective and more irritating.
Interesting.
So that could be a good step to introduce later if you are introducing a retinol and you want more penetration from it down the line. You could introduce like a humectant, which can help deliver it to the deeper layers of your skin. But that could also cause unnecessary irritation if you don't want that yet, or you're not ready for that level of exposure.
So it's really, none of it's bad necessarily. It's just like different ways to get the most out of your retinol or the least out of it.
Yeah, because there's also like if you're using a product that has a low dose of retinol in it, then having a penetration enhancer in there could be good because a low dose plus a good penetration could be the right balance for your skin.
Yep.
But some people, it might be better to have it like kind of sit on top of their skin at a higher concentration. Just really depends, which is so hard. But
it is.
I've also seen a lot of kind of discourse around whether you should or should not use things like vitamin C, AHAs, or benzoyl peroxide. Because all of these things can increase irritation. But I've also seen a lot of people recommending it because it can help exfoliate the skin cells that have been loosened by the retinol or retinoid. I put in parentheses that you could probably speak to this a little bit more because I do know that you use a retinoid and benzoyl peroxide.
Yes. So I don't use benzoyl peroxide right now, but benzoyl peroxide and retinol actually they have like degradation.
Yeah.
They degrade each other.
They like cancel each other out.
Yeah. So if you're using benzoyl peroxide in your routine, you need to use that in the morning and retinol at night. I use AHAs and BHAs in my routine, and the way that I do it, and I also use vitamin C. So I use vitamin C in the morning and retinol at night. You can use the two together. They don't degrade each other, but they can be sort of irritating. So spreading them out can be helpful. And then I just do my tretinoin one night, and then the next night I'll use as exfoliants. And then I'll do a recovery night where I lather my skin in humectants and like a rich moisturizer to kind of help my skin recover. And then I'll start the process over again. So you can use other things in your routine. You just kind of have to be strategic about it and also really pay attention to the way that your skin is reacting. Like if I ever wake up in the morning and my skin's a little bit irritated, cool, I'll skip a night and I'll do another recovery night. I think just being very aware of what each thing does in your routine and the effects that it can have on your skin is really helpful.
Yeah. You have to be pretty aware of it when you are using retinoids because the side effects from them can be slightly delayed.
Yeah.
You can use it and have a reaction a day or two later because you're producing more skin cells lower and then they come to the surface. So you'll see like a really specific type of peeling that you'll get because you're creating so many extra skin cells. So, but that can kind of happen down the line. Just like how a sunburn will peel a few days later, you can kind of get the same thing with retinoids.
Yeah.
I've seen other people recommend things like niacinamide and vitamin E for soothing because that can kind of combat the irritation.
Yep.
But all of the ingredients, I think it just kind of comes down to like vitamin C is good for skin brightening.
Yeah.
So if that's your goal and you're using them in combination, it could be a really good synergistic combination of ingredients. But it could also be that if you don't need the skin brightening and you're using it for like acne, then it might be like kind of overkill to be using a vitamin C if you're probably getting some of this like skin lightening benefit from the retinol.
Yeah.
Using a vitamin C on top of that is probably going to cause irritation if you don't have skin to lighten.
Yeah.
You know?
I also do want to say that when it comes to skincare, like I talk about my skincare routine, I have been doing intense skincare for like 10 years. I was on Accutane, so my skin is very different than it used to be. And so my routine is much more intense than most people's starting routine would be. Yeah. And I think my biggest advice when it comes to adding any sort of retinoid into your routine whatsoever is you need to be so patient with this ingredient. You need to start slow. Do the thing that Nat said where you do it once every 3 days. Start with the lowest concentration you possibly can. Apply it every 3 days. Once your skin's used to that, you can increase it. It could take 6 months to get to the point where you're doing what I'm doing, where I apply it like every couple of days with other ingredients. But like there are other products out there that you can use and just put on your face and see immediate effects and be totally fine. Retinoids are not one of those. So I think they're incredible additions to my routine. If I had to choose one ingredient to use for the rest of my life, it would be retinoic acid, tretinoin. But you have to be patient with it. Yeah. And allow your skin to adjust because if you don't, I feel like a lot of people do it wrong and then they hate the ingredient and give up and never actually get to see the benefit from it.
Yeah. I think that's a huge reason why I haven't actually started using one yet is because I don't think I'm patient enough right now. Like I think I would just like go way too hard. And even people with like, I've talked about how my skin is not easily irritated, but because retinoids work in this other mechanism where they are creating additional skin cells instead of like just exfoliating them, it can cause irritation even if your skin is not usually
easily irritated. Yeah, I agree. And I think if you're just starting out, I would highly recommend starting with a cosmetic product that has a retinol derivative in it. Just any sort of gentler version that needs more conversion, like Nat explained. Because if you try to go in with tretinoin, guns a-blazing, applying it, consistently, like you are not going to see very good results from that. No. And I don't say that to fearmonger at all. Like I said, it's incredible. But
and I would guess that you probably could theoretically maybe like stick it out and have like clear skin that's kind of flaky and red and irritated because that's essentially what you do if you go on Accutane.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
and you purge like hell on Accutane.
Yeah. Too. It's not a fun experience. Like no one explains their Accutane journey as being like really gradual and like and sustainable. Yeah. So if you are going to just like go all in with tretinoin, you could expect more of that kind of outcome where like you're going to feel miserable and dry and flaky and you're going to wake up every morning and be able to peel your entire lip off from corner to corner.
Oh God. Flashbacks. Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, I guess I should amend my statement. You can go in with the lowest concentration. I think it's 0.025% tretinoin. You just might.
You're probably going to have a very bad time.
Yeah, but you might get there faster.
But also then you have to figure out something more sustainable afterward. And I think it's probably just a lot easier to start from the beginning and work your way up.
Yes. I think the easiest, most painless way is to start with a cosmetic with a vitamin A derivative. And then as you get more used to that, you can work your way up to adapalene and then prescription strength.
Yeah.
If you're too impatient and you're okay with dealing with irritation, purging, stuff like that, that's fine. You could go straight into tretinoin.
Yeah.
If it's something that you're interested in, I would definitely recommend checking with your dermatologist and kind of seeing what they recommend for your skin because they'll know better than we do. But we are at a time where we have so many options when it comes to retinol. So there's something out there for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Just another reminder that not everyone needs one. Yeah. And that for a lot of people, your skin is performing adequately, that there are other skincare ingredients like AHAs and vitamin C that will adequately remove the surface and make it look good. And the cells that are being made are looking good as well, you know? So yeah, definitely talk to a dermatologist if you have skin issues. If there is something like acne or spots or uneven texture or something like that you're trying to address, always talk to a dermatologist first. But if it's more like I'm just starting to see some like fine lines, like the stage that I'm in right now, where it's like my skin's fine, but like I'm now, I was going to say, perfect topic for our 30th episode, because now that I'm 30, I feel like I'm considering a retinol.
That's also crazy. We have 30 episodes.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but yeah, if you're more in my stage where it's like I don't have like an obvious skin issue that I'm trying to overcome, it's more just like general maintenance, anti-aging stuff. I think that's more where I could do a little bit of experimenting on my own, getting like products from the drugstore and just using them, or getting products from a skincare brand without a prescription. But definitely, if you have an issue, talk to a dermatologist, because like we mentioned, there are just so many factors, and retinol's not a very stable molecule. No. Retinoids are not stable molecules. And
it's not the best thing for every single skin issue.
Yeah.
Like we discussed this in the PDRN episode, but most cosmetic ingredients have a few things that they're really good at. And retinol is incredible for anti-aging and skin cell turnover. But maybe
it's actually kind of good at like almost everything.
It is. Well, it is good at almost everything. But like, it's not the only thing that can help with acne. It's not the only thing that can help with brightening. Like there are other ingredients out there that can be beneficial. And so you don't have to use retinol. Yeah. A retinol might be too much for someone. Yes. It's a pretty intense option. Yeah. So I think if you talk to a dermatologist, you can kind of see if this is the best option for you or if you'd rather go a different route. Yeah. In next week's episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about the different types of OTC versus prescription. And we'll talk a little bit more about choosing things like retinol. Yeah. But overall, just the conversation of why skincare can just be so tricky to figure out. We'll talk more about like how these formulas are a little bit different between the prescription over the counter and regular cosmetics. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that in the next episode. But yeah, for this one, that's mostly what I wanted to leave you guys on, was just letting you guys know that it's very hard for any companies to say based on a percentage of an ingredient that that's going to do anything, because we don't know with a lot of these retinoids if they're even at that percentage when you apply it. Yeah. Or if it's been degraded over time. Hopefully it was a good introduction to retinol, the different types. Hopefully it cleared it up. It helped clear things up for me because like the four forms are so confusing. It is a little bit confusing, but yeah, basically it's just an evolution. Just a little process, yeah. On our Instagram account, we will have more information about these so you can kind of see them in graphic form. Yeah. I think it'll kind of help to make things a little bit easier to see visually. Yeah. So you can go follow us on Instagram at BeautyXspeaker. Speaker. We're on Instagram and everywhere else.
Yeah, all social medias at Beauty X Speaker.
Yes.
You can also find us online at beautyxspeaker.com.
Yes.
You can follow us personally.
You can. I'm Sadie BXB.
And I'm Nat BXB.
And we will see you guys next week for part 2 of our retinol conversation.
Yeah, please, if you're not already, subscribe. We have more to talk about and you're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah, you do not want to miss part 2 of this conversation. So subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, let us know your
Hit that
favorite part.
notification bell.
Do all the things.
Do it all.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.